don't know, just that way, I guess, or maybe I was just a weird kid,
Right.
you know. But that guitar was always there, man. And one day I just started playing it, and since I was always writing anyway, I figured, you know, well, I gotta come up with some music so that I'm not, because, you know, as a 9-year-old kid, the idea of being a poet is not really cool, you know. I want to be a rock star. I don't want to be no poet.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Now I think poets are awesome.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like,
Yep.
now I think like Longfellow was probably one of the coolest dudes in the world.
Poets and flutes, man.
Poets
Yeah,
and flutes.
definitely.
We're on a good train here.
Definitely, man.
I love it.
Talking about judging a book by its cover. I don't think anyone would think that of you if they
Right.
first met you.
You know, it's funny, man. Whenever I first broke away from doing death metal and started doing this country stuff, everybody would just look at me and be like, I don't see it.
Right.
And I'd be like, well, that's fine. I guess I don't need you to. It's just what I'm doing.
Right.
You know? And, you know, because that whole playing metal, man, like, I love doing it, but it didn't, I don't know, it didn't, everything just kept falling apart, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get to a point where everybody's either too high or too sick to play because everybody gets all strung out and shit, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it happens, man. And we had a really solid set in this band, this death metal band I was in called Morbid Obsession.
Morbid Obsession.
Yeah. And,
Nice.
I went down to Texas to this housecore horror film festival thing that Phil Anselmo did down there. And I met a guy named John Borowski who does documentaries on Netflix and stuff. Now he does like stuff about serial killers and all this stuff. And that's totally, you know, when you're playing death metal, like that's your thing.
That's it,
you
right?
know? And I had this song that was completely made up of pieces out of Albert Fish's letters, which was just awful. I hated singing it. As a parent, it was horrible singing it. But he was going to come up and he was like, man, I'd love to hear it, you know, because I told him about it. And he was like, man, I'd like to hear it and put you guys in this serial killer culture documentary, which is like this thing that he does where if you're inspired by serial killers and you make artwork based around them, he will put you in this documentary, man. And well, it ended up, I went home from Texas, and about a month later, our guitar player shot himself. Yeah, and it sort of brought that band to a screeching halt.
I would
you know?
say.
Yeah,
Holy
it was
cow.
intense. It sucked really bad, you know.
Oh.
And we waited for a couple of years for this other dude that we played with. He was in prison for a long time, and we were waiting for him to get out so we could start playing again, you know. And
Get
because
the band back together.
yeah,
Let's
you
go.
gotta wait for him to get out, man. And when he got out, man, we started right into jamming, and we wrote all this stuff that just came off.
I bet he had some stories to write about.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he's just an amazing musician, man. He's awesome. He doesn't really write anything, but it's like he just had a lot of time to spend in a box and work on his timing.
Right?
You know, and he got really good.
Was he the
at it.
drummer?
No, he's a bass. He was
okay.
our bass player.
Still.
And,
Timing, yeah.
Yeah, you know, part of your rhythm section is important.
Holy cow.
And, but man, that whole thing ended up sort of falling apart. Like he didn't want to go out and do shows, and it just like that's all I've ever wanted to do with my life is get out and make music. So it was kind of like, well, shit, man, if we're not going to go play out, I got to figure out something else, you know?
Yeah.
So I started doing this. I figured I need something I can do on my own where I don't have to worry about other people, you know, and I can just go out and do it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And this like country folk thing that I do now is just the sound that came out of it. And, you know, for the last 6 years or so, I've just been riding it, you know,
Yeah.
Nice.
loving it.
Yeah.
Is it mostly covers, or do you have some originals thrown in there too?
I got a bunch of originals.
Nice.
I've written, in the last few years, I've probably written 200-300 songs somewhere in there.
Damn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I've
awesome.
only kept about 20 of them, you
Right?
know, because I scrutinize my music real hard.
Yeah, that's
But,
okay.
well, yeah, man, because I mean, if it's not good, it's not good.
Right.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And it's one of them things, like 90% of what you write is not your best work.
Yep.
You know, it's just the way it is.
Well, and I've always said too, the songwriters that are actually good are just the ones that write the most. Mm-hmm. If you write 1,000 songs, you're probably going to have a song better than most people you know.
That's right.
Just because of the sheer numbers. I mean, it's actually a mathematical, statistical, equation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I remember seeing one of those 2020 or 60 Minutes or one of those news kind of shows, and they were interviewing Diane Warren.
Yeah.
Who is got the more number one songs?
You know the Titanic song, the big
Oh,
Titanic.
yeah.
She wrote that.
She did Barbra
Right
Streisand.
on.
She did Aerosmith songs. I mean, just
She's doing all right.
She has,
Yeah.
she has more number one songs than any other songwriter on planet
Don't want to miss a
Earth.
thing. That
Yeah.
And so she actually allowed them to come into her writing room, which is where she, as they're walking in, there's just piles and piles of cassette tapes. This was a while ago before, computers were as big a
Right.
deal as they are now. But I mean, stacked, 4 or 5 feet tall and, 10 deep, 30 wide. They're all over her piano, all over her desk, all up in her bookshelves. They were everywhere. I mean, it was right when you walked in, it was like,
whoa.
this is weird. Like
Yeah.
it was almost like a hoarder, but cassette tapes.
Right.
So the guy interviewing her is just like, what is the deal with all these cassette tapes? She said, every one of them has 3 or 4 songs on it. And he's like, oh, you mean ideas? And she goes, no, completely done. Verses, choruses, pre-choruses, they're all the way done from start
Just
to
been
finish.
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just
So-
putting it all down on tape.
Whoever writes the most is the one who's got the good ones.
There
I mean,
you
that's
go.
just,
Right.
so 200-300 songs, that's
great.
hell a lot, even if you are only keeping 20%.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
that's cool. Tune in live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central.
On the Unsung Screamers Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Twitter.
And check out our Unsung Screamers podcast.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Ah!